You ready?
Yep, I said it live.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, okay. Then I guess we're good. All right, welcome everybody to the Coders Podcast. My name is Nate Kellert. I'm alongside Jeremy, the Playboy May. No one calls him that. They will now. And Google's own, YouTube's golden boy, Kevin Mulkowski. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good.
Man, it's been a
Tired after
little.
last week.
It's been several weeks since we've done this.
Yep.
Yeah, about 3 or 4.
I think it was Kevin the other night that pointed out that all the news we could talk about is already kind of old. Like, there's been lots that's happened, but now everybody's like, okay, that's already been talked about a lot.
You know, all we have to do is we put a really bad title to it, clickbait title, and re-release it a month from now, and we're good.
There you go. There you go.
For some reason.
I saw like in my news feed something from like 4 years ago on Facebook, like not presented as like something somebody shared, but like as current news. It was kind of odd.
Yeah, I think I've seen that
Facebook
too.
has been pissing me off lately. They keep switching back your news feed. Anytime you switch to most recent, they're like, "Oh, it's been a week. You want to see top stories again?" No, no, I don't.
Yeah, they do that. That really annoys me. But that's been a problem with Facebook for like years, like at least a year. It's been something that's annoyed me for a long time.
Yeah.
Your lower thirds, by the way, is going like right over your mouth. You look like you're being censored by your lower third bar.
But yeah,
there you go.
I think they switch it back simply because if they don't, then they can't get their their advertisement in.
Yeah.
Facebook. I love how every single time they have an F8, one of their biggest news things is about how to advertise better. And you're like, really? You guys didn't want to like improve your UI or anything like that? That was like their big thing. They were like, this year now we have an interactive dashboard for your advertising. We're like, yeah, that's just what you've been waiting for. How to better monetize ads.
Right.
Did you know that Google apparently has an app for tracking your ads, your AdWords, that you can load onto your phone, and then you can apparently check your ads, like how well your AdWords are doing, and when was the last time it was hit.
That's crazy. I know that they've incorporated that all throughout just the overall analytics API. So, man, there's quite a bit to talk about. I guess the big thing that's coming up tomorrow is we've got a brand new Wwdc, which iOS 9 will be announced, I'm sure. Have you guys heard at all anything that's going on with WWDC this year?
Nope.
I don't think we were talking about this just a minute ago. We were talking about the new Apple streaming service, music streaming service. It's like Spotify.
Yeah, there was a company. There was a company that actually leaked the information that Google would be providing a streaming service. Up till that point, it had been just rumors. I'm not even sure if I'll be able to find it now. I didn't bother to note it down, but yeah, somebody leaked that for a fact Apple would be announcing the streaming service tomorrow.
I think that's it. To me, it makes sense for them. I mean, they pretty much invented the digital music market as we know it. Everybody else has pretty much copied what they did with iTunes. So it just kind of makes sense that they would go there since they have access to every song ever anyway.
Well, I guess the biggest problem, or the real question is, they have access to selling the songs, but does that mean they have access to also providing all of the content as a streaming service, because that's different license agreements usually with the studios and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what they have to say about it.
Yeah, I'm sure that they did. I mean, but here's the thing: is if Spotify can do it, which there's not much music that. Really, Spotify's the only one out there who's been successful at it. I mean, Amazon tried their Amazon Prime thing, but if you've ever been on there, it's pretty awful.
Wait, I thought there was one more.
There,
What's it called?
Pandora?
Yeah, Pandora.
well, Pandora's more radio, though. That's not like I can choose my order, my music. I can listen to the entire album all the way through. Pandora's definitely.
Well, I'd be interested to see the statistics, but I'll tell you for sure that Pandora was a prime driver in sort of the streaming community for a long time, and then Spotify just came along and sort of slowly but surely knocked them out of it. I mean, I think it still has a market, but yeah, Spotify has kind of eclipsed them in recent years.
Yeah, to me, and I was saying this right before we went live, that to me, Apple really is going to have to bring something either as good or better than Spotify in order to really take off. I mean, because Spotify now goes everywhere. They're on PlayStation 4 even. There's a lot of your really good receivers now have Spotify built into them. Spotify's everywhere. Like Apple's limited themselves to a certain. We were talking about this. They've limited themselves for the most part to just users who can afford their products. If they really do that, there's not a real high chance of success because everybody else will just stick with Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of always been kind of Apple's game. I mean, we've talked about it a lot here that they're big on their keeping everything cohesive between all their products and stuff like that. But I mean, I think if you're trying to compete with Spotify, you're gonna have to open up an Android application just to sort of match what Spotify's doing in the market at the moment.
Yeah. Also, Spotify, I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but Spotify's web app actually by itself is pretty awesome without even downloading software.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which is a problem for Apple as well, because the only way you can interface with their music store is through the iTunes app.
Yeah. They're definitely going to have to make some huge adjustments. What are some other things? I'm hearing that they're not going to do a whole lot as far as UI is concerned. And I wouldn't think they would. They spent a lot of time on 7, and then 8 was really just a huge jump to expand iOS 7. And they released Swift, and now they've got Apple Watch. And I don't think that you're going to see any crazy changes with either whatever. The one thing I am interested is what crazy ass name they're going to come up with for the next version of OS X. They were just like, listen, we don't fucking like cats anymore, so let's start naming them after mountains.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do next. Actually, I think they're doing it off of places unique to California. I think that was their reasoning behind Yosemite. So I don't know if they'll follow that. What else is tomorrow? God, I mean,
Monday.
we're not a gaming show, but E3, all the big.
I can't wait till E3's over. Another year of boring releases and terrible games that are screwed up and developers who just don't care.
E3 is a big showcase of let me show you all this cool stuff to get excited about that you can't buy for another year and a half.
Or when it does come out, it's broken.
Yeah. Ubisoft was kind of king of that this year.
Ubisoft, EA, Sony, pick a company. Square Enix, their whole motto is, we're gonna re-release Final Fantasy VII with the same graphics.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into Square Enix. Square Enix has basically gone into the mobile market. They're not interested in making that many console games. I think if we're talking games, the main thing we'll see from at least Square Enix is probably another trailer or gameplay video of
The new
Final Fantasy
yeah.
15.
Yeah.
You know what? I always
28?
like the indie games that come out of E3. There's some awesome indie games. Like the one game that I'm looking to see more out of at E3 is No Man's Sky. That's supposed to have like 10 quadrillion planets or something like that you can visit. That's nuts to me.
Well, I'm skeptical about that game. I mean, procedurally generated games, they have a certain kind of potential, but they tend to fall flat, and there hasn't been a lot of gameplay footage of No Man's Sky, so it's very worrisome. I'm still not sure if it's going to turn into vaporware or not.
Yeah, I don't know. It still excites me. To me, like using that kind of technology though can really take games to a replayable level that we've never seen before. If more companies were to get behind that kind of software and really, push towards developing stuff like that.
What, procedurally generated?
Yeah, and if not, maybe not at the scale that they're trying to do it at, but to an extent,
it's really difficult though. I think that's what people don't realize. It is really hard to do procedurally generated games because, I mean, as programmers, one of the things we always have to watch out for is edge cases. And when you start talking about, building a level that could be really, really big and, is built by an algorithm, you've got a lot of edge cases you got to check out. And, testing that's the difficulty of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw from Notch this last week, they were talking about how there's a guy that has a computer dedicated to just running in Minecraft as long as it can, since it's like infinitely generated.
Mm-hmm.
But they were saying at some point his computer's just gonna crash. He can't do it. Like the farther he goes, they were saying by the time he could get his computer to crash before the world just finally wiped out, it's gonna take him like 44 years. And I'm like, who has time for that? Like, you know how many new consoles are gonna be out in that time? But I guess the guy's really like, no, I want to do it. Why? Are you gonna get some special achievement they're gonna put on your profile or something that you're the idiot that ran till your computer broke?
Someone's got to do it.
What are some other? When does Sony do their big E3 announcement? I'm guessing we're probably going to hear a lot about VR at E3 this year. Simply because there's been so many moves, so many new VR headsets that have been announced. To me, it's going to end up being like kind of like the DVD to Blu-ray and HD situation where everybody just came out with like their own desktop of one or the other, and then pretty much all companies went bankrupt except for two trying to do it. I don't know. What else do we got? We have this big list on Slack. Let's go back to that.
Where's it start for us?
Huh?
So where does it start for us?
Yeah, we've got a list thanks to Jeremy.
We need a function that clears that at the end of each podcast.
We can do that. It's got a robots.
No way, we're always scrolling to the top.
This thing's taking forever. What do you got, Jeremy? You know your news better than everybody.
Well, let's see here. I do have a couple of programming things on here, but I guess we will. I don't even remember where we left off. That's the problem.
We had that one where you could rate your skill based on Big O notation.
Oh yeah, the programmer competency grid. Yeah, that's kind of old, but I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought it was. I mean,
I was going through that myself. Sorry.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's a person's arbitrary made up if you know this, then you're a guru or a rock star programmer, anything like that. But I think the grid's laid out pretty decently.
Did it have scores at the end, like to see where you're
it was I think it was just there to sort of provide, just kind of a way to judge where you are in each particular category.
Yeah. There were some I was like, I'm of 1 here and of into the nth power over here. One of which was like networking. It's like, yeah, I don't know a thing about networking.
To me, it's God, like programming's such a vast industry. Like it's really like part of this thing is you don't have to be competent in all areas. Like it's just not necessary. Like it'd be a waste of your time to try to become competent in some of these areas if you're really only planning on doing certain types of programming, like machine learning or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I'd say it's almost. It would definitely be impossible to match every one of these. I mean, just kind of going down. There's like data structures and algorithms and system programming and version control and communication. I mean, it's a huge list, and I don't think it's. Not everybody should be able to, or not everyone should have to, be expert level at everything because, even within a company, you're going to have people that are doing certain particular jobs for a particular software project. You might have a build engineer whose entire job it is to make sure that, when the, software developers write code and they click build, that everything builds properly. And then you'll have the people that are in charge of algorithms, and they're going to know the algorithms really, really well.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, there are some things I expect you to know, like you should know source control. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I may not expect you to know the login version of it, but like OVN or.
I liked how in the matrix it says for source code version control level 0. So this is like super beginner. Your source control is folder backups by date.
God.
Email.
Yeah, I email the source code myself.
Okay, email.
It's
We're all expert at nothing.
I've got zip drives on my computer.
So, I have a issue with a website, or not a website, with this. You guys have watched Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
Anyone think the last episode is stupid?
I haven't seen. I think I've missed the last 2 episodes, so I can't really comment on it.
I've missed that as well.
Yeah, the second season's been kind of not nearly as good as the first season, in my opinion.
Oh, this last episode, not today's, but last week, will make you scratch your head and wonder what they were high on and why you should even watch it anymore.
Oh my God.
It's like, hey, I'm going to spoil one tiny part, but it's like, hey, let's transfer terabytes or petabytes of data over a non-secure FTP line instead of, walking right down the street and handing them hard drives with copies. And they copied it. They didn't request a copy. They requested full access to the videos, just to download them and then zip them up. So like, just get a copy so you don't have to.
That is super dumb.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that they like if you're not a programmer or you don't know anything about Silicon Valley, like you kind of get this just that Silicon Valley is all about throwing huge parties with tons of women, and it's really like on a launch party, it's generally like 3 dudes and 1 girl who came with it, one of the guys.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing like what they make it out to be.
No,
Well,
it's
yeah.
not. It's funny because I actually saw. Speaking of launch parties, I saw some pictures from GitHub. They did a the launch party in Tokyo recently. I guess they expanded to Japan because I guess they didn't have an office in Japan up till recently, but now they do. And I saw some photos from it, and it's like you see a lot of dudes and a couple girls here and there.
Oh my god. And it's yeah. Well, and here's the thing: is I went to one launch party while I was in San Francisco. I think we were in bed by 10:30. It was like it consisted of us like drinking 4 beers, everybody feeling tired, and then it just ended. Like that's all it was. Like, that's really all it was. Yeah, there's not much that happens in San Francisco. Everybody in San Francisco goes to L.A.
Yeah.
to drink. But I'm trying to find Wwdc.
So I guess they'll kind of work backwards, I suppose. So another news article that was kind of interesting. I guess I feel like we may have covered this on the last podcast. Did we cover a company's come up with a chip to put into cell phones that's specifically focused on doing machine learning? That's the whole focus of the chip. It's kind of like one of the specialized chips. So it's not. I think they would call them a application-specific integrated circuit, but I think this one may be a little bit more complex than that. It's got a single function. And the function in this case is it's really good at doing, deep learning or machine learning.
And it's meant specifically for mobile use?
Yes, they're going to be putting it inside of cell phones. That's the focus, anyways.
Yeah. Well, and Kevin and I actually I've talked to each of you separately, but one of the things that we've talked about over these last couple of weeks is that machine learning is really the only place where phones can really expand in still. It's not necessarily making your like Cordova or whatever her name is and Siri and not making them better at giving you your own info, but better about learning about you, enabling them to present you with relative information by learning your patterns, what things you're interested in, like actual learning, not better APIs.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that would definitely help a lot because it also gets creepy because, I mean, hey, your laundry detergent should almost be out. Let's go to the store and buy some more. Although I expect Apple will do that. Not Apple, Amazon will do that first.
It's
maybe. I mean, on one hand, it is kind of creepy that your computers could eventually reach a point where they can track the things you do like that. Kind of like having a smart enabled refrigerator that says, you know what, you're almost out of eggs. You should probably pick up some more. It is kind of creepy on one hand, but it's really convenient because I can tell you that there are many times I've been at the grocery store and it's kind of like, crap, what am I missing at home in terms of food? It'd be really nice to have an app that you didn't have to update yourself, but you just pull it up and go, you're almost out of eggs. You need to pick up another gallon of milk or what have you. That would be really useful, but it's really hard to do.
I mean, Google does the same thing. It's like, hey, you have a flight tomorrow morning at 8:30. You want to leave at like 5 and check in, or something like that. It's like, you have a meeting over here. You should probably leave. It's like, Why do you know this?
Yeah, some of the stuff that the Google Now on the on Android does is
Yeah.
kind of creepy sometimes. Like
Yeah.
like you don't even have to necessarily tell it where you live. It'll eventually learn where you live, I think. So it'll
Yep.
tell you like when you're at work and you're starting to go home, and if you go home at the same time every day, it goes like you're 15 minutes from home, and it's like holy shit.
Yeah. The funny one is, like you said, it'll learn where your home is. It'll learn where your work is. And up until when I started working at Google, uh, it always knew where I worked. But the second I started working at Google, it's like, that's pretty hard to get into. There's no way he works there.
There's some of those type of things that are cool. I wonder if, like, I wonder how deep they could make that go. Like, I saw that you told your girlfriend that you were going to work. You're not. You're at your friend Stephanie's house.
I'm texting your girlfriend.
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be too difficult. I think the big issue though is for like tracking what food you've used. We're gonna have to improve on our computer vision algorithms and stuff like that, and that's kind of a sore point, at least within the industry at the moment, because a lot of our computer vision algorithms aren't spectacular.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point, though, I think in general, like the machine learning thing, I know is going to kind of go slow, but I see that catching on. But I think a lot of developers agree that in general, like Siri and all the other, like digital assistants, like it's kind of a waste of money right now to keep dumping more resources into that when they aren't actually learning or growing,
Well, I think the big problem is that we've already kind of reached a point where we're looking around and we're trying to decide, what new things haven't we already done? I mean, where can we put money that could potentially make us money? And, trying to decide whether we should spend more money, revamping our UI isn't necessarily all that productive. So really the kind of the final frontier is in this sort of machine learning, area of software development. It's got the maximum potential to do incredible things compared to other stuff.
And who knows if it's even machine learning? I mean, someone might stumble across something new, so. Yeah. But we don't know that yet.
And it kind of makes sense that even Apple could be moving towards that. Like forever, Apple sandboxed everything, and that's why, Google or Android was such an open platform, but at the same time, that's why it was plagued by viruses and stuff, is because it was just completely open for anybody, any part of its API. Apple definitely was on the opposite side of that spectrum, and didn't get viruses, but at the same time, though, apps couldn't share information with any other app or even the system itself, other than letting the phone know that it existed. Because it ran in its own sandbox, and now you're finally able to. Apple's really opening up, and actually, that's one announcement I actually plan on. I'm actually counting on Apple to make tomorrow, which is that it's, I wouldn't say unsandboxing, but it's taking what is currently its extensions and opening it wide open to things like notifications, just a lot more system integrated functions. That will allow Apple at the same time to be able to keep track of information it never could before.
Yeah.
But, and to me, that kind of stuff is what has to happen in order for. Because if Android really did put in, well, they've already released their machine learning API. But if manufacturers really got on that, Android would be so far ahead within the next year or two, simply because manufacturers are utilizing it and Apple hasn't even started.
Oh, what was that? I ran across a machine learning API actually recently. I think it was, Prediction.io. It's an open source machine learning server.
Oh yeah, I actually went to that page the other day. It's interesting.
I don't quite understand how it works, but
I don't understand how their pricing works. Like it's limited to a certain amount of predictions, but what constitutes as a prediction? Like I don't. That doesn't make any sense to me. Server time makes sense to me. That's like saying your user can only open your app 85 times and get a prediction. I don't get it. I don't get it. But oh well. What else do we got?
hmm. Even older than what we just mentioned, there's a big question about whether Hadoop is actually being left behind. Um, I guess you could even ask whether Hadoop's been successful at all. Because and if anyone is listening doesn't understand, Hadoop is kind of like a how would you phrase it? It's like an infrastructure for big data. It's a way to like store incredibly large documents over multiple servers and to be able to access them and deal with the data instead of stripping the data down and storing what you think you might need in the future. The big question is whether or not Hadoop's been successful. Is it being beat out by stuff like Apache Spark? I don't know.
I still think it'll always have its, its market, its users, but it doesn't. It just hasn't had anything. I can't think of anything recent that I've heard about it.
Well, some of the comments that I was reading sort of related to this issue. It said that the biggest problem was that enterprises are the ones that tend to go with Hadoop, and the big issue is that if you decide to go Hadoop, you have to sink loads of money into it. It's not something like you're going to sit down a server, install Hadoop, and you're ready to go. No, it doesn't work that way. You've got to have a huge amount of infrastructure to be able to actually even start, seeing the benefits of Hadoop, and that requires lots of money.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be right back.
And I think that's really hard when you've got companies like DigitalOcean that are like, install any software that you want to within this list within 30 seconds and be up and ready to go. Like that's really hard. Like you're like, man, maybe the capabilities aren't quite as much as Hadoop, but I mean, to just be able to start programming and moving, like it's really hard to convince yourself that you need to do a whole lot of work unless it's 100% necessary, which is really niche. Which goes back to what I was saying, that I think they'll always have their share of users, that their share of businesses that keep them, but they're not going to appeal to large amounts of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hadoop's just too expensive is probably the big problem. It's kind of like it's like getting in bed with Oracle. If you're going to decide to go with Oracle, you can't get the benefits of going with something with Oracle or IBM for that matter. You have to like spend loads of money, and then once you start, and then it takes time to set up everything that you're going to use with Oracle or IBM, and then it's not necessarily going to play nicely with everything else.
Yeah, well, and people ask me all the time, when I'm programming on Android, they're like, how does Oracle even make money giving away Java? I was like, they might give away Java, but in order to, if you're a big business, you aren't going to, and you're about ready to dump millions of dollars into Oracle's products, you're not just going to let any developer on your team plan the whole thing. You're going to sit down with an actual like Java, guy from Oracle who knows everything about it to make sure that your plan's going to be successful. Because you can't find out, $100,000 away into a project that you just did the whole thing wrong.
Speaking of that, there's actually an interesting article I saw earlier this week, or maybe it was actually, I think it was yesterday. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. The article in question sort of dealt with You knew that Oracle was suing Google, right?
Yeah, I don't remember over what though.
So kind of gotten old, but the big question. So I put it in the Hangout chat there. You can kind of see it. So the article title is "The Supreme Court May Decide the Fate of APIs." The big issue is whether or not you can actually copyright a language's API. So when Google made Android, they made Android run on Java. But the thing is that they didn't use the Java virtual machine, the one that Oracle puts out. And Google went out and they built what's called the Dalvik, and that's what actually runs. Yeah, and that's what runs Java on any Android device. So they did that to kind of try to get around getting locked in with Oracle, and then Oracle sued them, and they said that that Java was essentially copyrighted, and I think Oracle has lost some of the lawsuits, but I think the big one still is whether or not you can copyright the API, because Google is still using a lot of the API that Oracle laid out with Java originally, but when you compile the Java into class and get the bytecode, it's not running on Oracle's VM, it's running on Google's VM.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I think this may be the reason. I didn't actually hear about like what it was about, but this may be the reason why there's a lot of rumors floating around that, Apple came out with their own a brand new language, and Google's been dumping tons of money into brand new programming languages, and also kind of open sourcing them and letting the developer community. It wouldn't surprise me if after all that finally happens that they decide to kind of move. I would.
Tangent. I didn't read the article, but I seen it. It's actually sitting here from the search results. Business Insider ran an article called "Why Google and Apple Made Their Own Programming Language." And at least one of the points was that it makes recruiting people a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, because you don't have to talk. Yeah, because if everything's in your own language, then all they have to know is that language. That's one of their problems right now, and definitely why a lot of their different sites and different software doesn't have a lot of uniformity, is their sites are all built in a lot of different things.
I mean, we have like 5 primary languages at Google.
And see,
Python,
yeah, was it
C++, Go, and what's number 5? JavaScript, maybe.
Go? No?
No, I already
he
said
mentioned
Go.
Go already?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I wondered how much they're actually using that.
Go?
Yeah.
All over the place.
Very cool. To me, it seemed at first I know that with Go they were kind of just dipping their feet. Although I do know that Go was kind of spawned. It's kind of like how React came to be. Like it spawned out of necessity. Like it needed to perform a certain task, and then somebody else was like, "Oh, that's really cool. We should do something with that." And then all of a sudden it was being developed. It was being pushed by Google to be developed, and then it was released out into a community. It's taken off definitely since its first inception.
And a good point that a Business Insider makes, I just kind of skimmed the article. They say that a good reason why, or a main objective for Google and Apple pushing their own programming languages is that it gives them the power to actually progress the language. Because apparently, like current languages and technologies are being being underserved. They're not sort of progressing fast enough. So by owning the language, so to speak, by being, not only the, mother or father of the project, they can guide it. If they need the language to do something new that, everybody's kind of wishy-washy about, they can just go ahead and put it in, and, they don't have to worry about everybody having a fit over it, I suppose,
Yeah.
with standardization and stuff. Because it's, you know, they standardized it. It's their standardization. They made the language. So if they needed to do something specific, they can just stick it right in there.
Yeah, and to me, here's the thing: is it's one thing to develop your own APIs for another language, but you can never make that language 100% yours. You're always gonna be at the mercy of other people, which is what sucks about that is when you lock yourself into, like, for instance, on Android's a perfect example. Like, the reason that they haven't moved up in Java versions is because they would have to update everything about every Android API. They're locked into the Android version that they're at, which leaves for security risks because there's a reason that Oracle's had updated Java versions since I think they're on 6.3 or something like that. But they're 2 versions behind now, and it's because they'd have to dump a ton more money in order to just get up to 8. As with their own language, it's their language. It's up to date as much as they want it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's, it is partially, implementing. I mean, they're still rolling out security patches. I mean, I don't think they're. I mean, Oracle updated the main reasons why Oracle has pushed out new versions of Java is to add a lot of the new features that are present in a lot of modern languages. Like Java 8 implemented Lambda functions, which is something that has been around forever and everybody's been wanting because it makes it easier. They've also implemented I think they implemented a shorthand for creating anonymous functions. So if you've ever had to create like a listener for some kind of object in on Android, when you're building an Android application, you always have to like do new control listener or action control listener, and then define the functions for that particular listener interface. Well, now they've implemented a way to easily do creating anonymous functions without having to do so much boilerplate, which has always been Java's big problem, Achilles heel, I suppose, has been loads and loads of boilerplate.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Fights for your right to program. I'm skimming through some other stuff on TechCrunch. There's one thing that I didn't know is that Spotify is working towards video.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
That actually that's very coincidental that they decided to start talking about that publicly right before Apple released their music streaming service. They're like, oh, that's what Apple's doing? Cool, well, we're doing video now. Ball's in your court, Apple. Man, there's a lot of stuff on TechCrunch. I haven't really hung out on here and taken a look, but there's a lot of good stuff. Facebook will ruin news feeds with GIFs. I'm looking over stuff over the last week. There's a lot of Apple stuff going on this week. It's really hard to actually find news about much else.
Well, the news will be here tomorrow after E3 or next week.
Yeah. There is. This is not really. It's kind of tech programming related, kind of not. Did anybody else find it really weird that Amazon and Apple both announced same-day delivery, like the same day? Like I was going through my news feed on Flipboard, and they were literally right next to each other. Like both those news posts, like within minutes of each other, they had both announced it.
I didn't know Apple did that.
Yeah,
Wait,
Apple.
Same day delivery?
Same day delivery. It's not for all markets, but it's
Yeah,
out.
obviously. I mean, when I lived in Japan, you get same day delivery anywhere in Japan. It was kind of nice, and it wasn't that expensive. So it's kind of nice to see that it's finally come to the U.S. But I don't understand why Apple's doing like what is Apple sending out? Are you talking like their accessories? You buy a MacBook on Apple's page and they send it to you the same day.
Yeah, I think it's basically anything within their store if you fall within one of their markets.
Yeah, one of their stores.
To in some ways, same day delivery is actually good for those businesses because they can take everything within their local areas that they have, distribution centers in and just get rid of all those orders without having to wait and process them. And if I can knock out 40 orders and get them out and delivered today, those are 40 orders I don't have to worry about.
Amazon, I knew was coming. I expect them to come out with their own post office soon, but Apple, on the other hand, no. I never did.
I can't remember what percentage it was, but it was something like Amazon's now responsible for 45% of all deliveries or something like that. It was way up there.
Oh, I heard about that. Yeah, like when it comes to using UPS and even U.S. Postal snail mail, yeah, Amazon consumes 45% of all of the money that comes through. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's what. Honestly, they'd be saving themselves a ton of money if they did.
Yeah, it would be.
I know it'd be.
Could you imagine what would happen if Amazon bought UPS or FedEx, one of the two?
I know that both companies would be in the market. They'd they could be like, well, you can either let us buy you, or we're going to make our own company. You'll lose all of our business. Either way, you're losing this company. So there's not much you can do about it.
Well, I don't think they've had to make their own to date because both companies, especially UPS, has been very accommodating to Amazon when it comes to doing deliveries.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of situations there's been a lot of rumors that UPS and companies have had specific internally they've given specific instructions that you give Amazon orders priority if something happens. Because they don't want to take a chance of losing them because losing them would mean losing 50% of their business. So that would be a very bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot what I was going to say.
I wonder what their infrastructure looks like that keeps track of all this. It's got to be insane.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I've always thought it was very interesting how when you buy something off Amazon and, let's say you get the free shipping, which is usually somewhere between 4 to 7 days, that it always lands there on the day it is. Because sometimes I've bought items and there's a Amazon distribution warehouse really close to me. It's maybe a hour or two drive away, so it's not it's incredibly difficult for them to drop it in the mailbox and get it to me. It's not like it's going to take an extremely long amount of time, and yet it still takes 4 days to get it. They give it to UPS, and then UPS sticks it in their warehouse and waits 4 days to ship the damn thing.
That's funny. I've noticed recently that all of their over the last 6 months, I buy a lot of stuff on Amazon. I'm talking probably good $5,000 a year on Amazon. I buy a lot of stuff. Yeah. And over the last 6 months, I've seen their same day delivery schedule. You know how it counts down? It's if you want this the next day, order within the next 2 hours or whatever. I've noticed that's gone later and later. I've ordered at 8 o'clock at night and still gotten it the next day.
Yeah, they do that. We we actually have a competition going on, and not Google, but just our team. There's three of us that order a bunch of packages, so we have a competition on who can order the most.
I
I went from second to third. I'm in third place right now, so because I stopped figuring out what to order.
What does that say about Google? Their workers have so much money, they have competitions about how much stuff each of them can buy.
Well, it's funny because we could probably get like gifts from like Amazon to come work for them. And no one would ever know because apparently all the deliveries come from Amazon.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You could get a second job at Amazon, and then people will just see you around the office.
Right?
They'll just assume you're there working. When did you get an Amazon shirt? I don't know. I just sent it to me. They said I was a good customer.
Well, it wouldn't be all that big of a deal because our coworker came from Amazon, so he wears his all the time. Now I could wear a Microsoft one. That'll be interesting.
I heard they're pretty high up there. Not as high as Google, but pretty high up there as far as like good places to work. Like I think they were in the top 10, top 15, something like that.
Oh, Google was
I don't
number
know if I
one.
want to work
So.
at Amazon. I've heard that Amazon's on call is pretty rough. I don't know how it compares to Google, but I've heard it's pretty rough being on call at Amazon.
Being on call at YouTube wasn't bad. Nothing happened, but yeah, that's what I've heard too. I mean, the top 100 companies, Google is number one this year, so.
You know, I bet the worst place to be on call at is like AT&T or Sprint. Oh my God! Talk about never having a good day.
I don't know.
I'd say Comcast, but they don't have any customer service, so.
They outsourced all their customer service.
Yeah, they just forgot to find the people to outsource too.
We're gonna let three guys in their basement do it. Oh, what else was I heard about?
So one of the, do you have something?
No, go ahead.
Well, one of the things I posted on the news board was there was a blog post by, I don't know who the guy is. I didn't actually look to see who it was, but it was some guy called Matt Briggs. He may be a famous person. I may just be showing off how big of an idiot I am. But he made a post on the role of a senior developer, and I was curious what you guys thought. What makes a senior developer?
I mean, the description, the verbatim description, is someone who can develop and build the frameworks and the system without zero instructions and be able to be a mentor for entry level and junior level software engineers. But I don't know really.
I think at the same time, though, you have to have a certain kind of teacher like skills about you as well. Because I mean, some of the smartest guys that knew everything about what they were doing would have made the worst senior developers, because if you ever asked them a question, they talked to you like you were the dumbest person on earth. Like, they were just kind of like, oh, I can't believe you don't know this. Like, nobody wants to go talk to that guy, so nobody wants that guy to be the senior developer.
Yeah. I guess, so Matt Briggs said that he broke down, a junior developer, an intermediate developer, and a senior developer, and he says that a good junior developer can be given a known task and be expected to execute it quickly and well. But he'll probably need guidance along the way. And then a good intermediate developer needs less supervision. They can be trusted to raise issues of code design and play a valuable role in design discussions. They are also the quote-unquote workhorses of the dev team. However, further mentoring and higher level supervision is still vital. And then he didn't really add a bullet point for senior developer, but he says that just a senior developer, knows everything really well, and he can not only know how to build the system, but one of the things that Briggs had pointed out was, an intermediate developer will probably always be on some, quest to do it the quote-unquote the right way. This is how it needs to be done. The intermediate developer has a good handle on design patterns and, different ways of doing, designing a piece of software. But the senior developer, he understands the right way, but he also understands the context of the problem and is willing to make, sacrifices, or what's the word I'm looking for? He's willing to give way in situations where, it doesn't always make sense to do it the right way, so to speak.
Yeah. Compromising.
Right, compromise. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. I agree. Sometimes the technically right way doesn't always deliver better results and can result in a lot more development time spent. And I think a good senior developer knows the difference. Is able to see both sides and know when to make those decisions.
Right. He also states that, being a senior developer, even though you go and look at a lot of the job advertisements, they always say, you're a senior developer if you've got 10 years of experience, or, almost 10 years of experience. He states that, he's met lots of people with 10, even 15 years of experience, and their title says senior developer, but they definitely are not. They're at best a really good intermediate developer. And it really comes down to that whole, knowing the technology and knowing when to, compromise on what you need to do on the project, and being able to, I guess, envision the project and be able to build it properly.
Yeah, I agree. That'll be really interesting it'd be really interesting to actually have like a full-on discussion about like all the different levels, like on both sides, not just because I think a lot of back-end like developers specifically, like they sometimes miss the importance of working with like UI UX, but that like because you could get a senior developer that doesn't know it, like that is completely back end, doesn't give two craps about the front end. Him and his team can be great, but the actual implementation of UI UX can be the slowest thing ever because they didn't think about it at all. Yeah.
Another thing, Briggs also states that a senior developer stops classifying developers based on their knowledge and instead understands that there is a spectrum of strengths and weaknesses, and they're intimately aware of everyone on their team, where their strengths and weaknesses are. So including himself. So the senior developer will know he's a good back-end developer, but he knows crap about the front end. So he'll get somebody that is really strong and really well at the front end to do the work with them to design the front end.
Yeah, I agree. I actually found a ton of stuff on. Have you ever checked out TechCrunch? TechCrunch is pretty cool. Doesn't really relate to programming that much, but you get a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't find just browsing around. Like I didn't know that Fitbit went public today.
Oh, did he go public today? Wow.
Yeah, for $100 million. And speaking of like the virtual reality headsets, there's an article on here. This is kind of old, but Fove, have you guys heard of them? FOVE, virtual reality headset that tracks eye movements, so that the camera and viewing angles shift based off of what objects you're actually looking at.
Yeah, there was something I was reading about. What do you want to call it? eye tracking. Like it was an alternative to having like a Oculus Rift, and I was really skeptical about it because I've used professional eye tracking software and cameras. Like they make special cameras for eye tracking, and they are so finicky to set up.
Yeah, to me it would be, even if it didn't do the whole head tracking thing, like that would be the optimal environment in order to track eye movement. To where there's not a whole lot of interference. All it has to worry about is literally the eyeball. It doesn't see anything else but that. To me, that, like, even if you didn't worry about head tracking, like the whole virtual reality type headset would be the optimal environment for eye tracking. Yeah. Let's see here. There's been a lot of stuff in online privacy.
Yep. Actually, Tom Cook took some pot shots at Google and Facebook over privacy issues.
Yes, he did. And actually, in response to that, I don't know if it was in response or if Google already had it going, but they actually have a brand new privacy website that they released just a couple days ago.
Yep.
That allows you to go in and control what they do and do not track. It might have been in response. I don't know. My guess is that Google's good, but they're not that good. Like they probably had that in the works. Have you ever seen situations, Kevin, where they're like, probably not on your team, but to where they're like, we need this now?
No. I'm sure it happens before I got there, but I'm not sure.
I think it would be really difficult to do now at Google just because it's become so bureaucratic. So, go back 10, 15 years, that was something they probably could have done. They could have walked into one of the offices and be like, okay, you guys were working on this, not any longer, you're working on this now.
To me, a lot of your good companies don't jump into things too quickly. They don't jump in too slow, but they don't jump in too fast. They're not like, oh, this is a good idea, let's make it, we need to do it now, let's get everybody on this. Like they release things in a very slow process in order to keep from just really dumb mistakes being made that most other startups probably do have.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it would definitely be tough to just pull a project out of nowhere, so.
Wow, I just read about a dildo startup company that is being featured in robotics magazines. What the hell? That is exactly why I came to this site. Good job, TechCrunch. Way to keep on top of it.
I've heard that. Well, you looked at it, Nate, and you said it was still there, but I've heard that I saw a news article saying that Google has removed the G+ button in some locations on a number of Google websites, and a lot of people say it's a sign that Google's actually spinning down their Google+. I don't know if they're planning to shutter it soon here or what.
To me, I don't think they're going to completely shutter. I think that they are going to. I don't think that they want to. I think they figured out that they don't really want to directly compete as like a. From everything that I've read and from the releases that I've seen from Google, they don't want to directly compete with Facebook or Twitter. They want the social experience to feel more just integrated into things that you do with an Android naturally. And that would make more sense. Like, I'm more inclined to probably communicate and talk to my friends through just natural interactions as I just use my Android every day than I am to specifically go to Google+.
Well, you can say that for sure. That now they're treating it like that, but at one point in time they wanted to directly compete with Facebook. I mean, that was their goal. They just realized that that ain't gonna work.
Yeah. Maybe that is their plan. They're like, listen, we never said we were going to be the next Facebook. You guys assumed through all of our thoughts and actions and words, which isn't fair. So that could be the case. But to me, even taking a more passive approach to it's probably better for them because they can spend all the damn money they want to at this point. They're not going to dethrone Facebook with anything that they currently have. So, there's no point in pursuing it. Might as well. If to me, that would be the best way for them to become bigger is to just integrate Google Plus, make it feel like it's a part of the system that users use every day, and they'll be participating in Google Plus without, mentally going, I'm going to use Google Plus now. They'd be growing a community without even knowing it.
Yep.
There was a lot of... I can't even think anymore. We had so many things we were talking about this last week, and now we got on the podcast, and I can't think of anything.
So, I'm probably gonna have to jump off soon, but
Listen, yeah, it's been forever, and we're all like, oh, let's search the internet. We need to get back to actually having topic sheets, things like that.
Yeah, we need the topic sheets.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Let's Did we want to start? We need to start doing this more regularly. We need more people to just
we need more people to where if I'm not here, someone can take over. I mean, if you're not here, someone else can take over, and Jeremy's always here, but...
I actually thought of doing I wouldn't call it a podcast, Jeremy, but I was thinking about it the other day, if we had this... Jeremy and friends. Jeremy, the Playboy May, and friends. But I thought it'd be cool, even if Kevin wasn't here, we didn't have anybody else that maybe we didn't call it a podcast episode, but we just threw it up on Watch People Code and bullshitted for a couple hours every week, even if it was just the two of us.
That's kind of what we're doing now.
Yeah. Kevin's left mentally and physically several times during the podcast.
Yeah. I'm tired. That week.
Yeah. Did anything big happen while you're on call?
No. I had to be ready for it.
Did you wake up throughout the night and what was that? Oh.
No, because Zurich. So how it works is we have two different teams. One in San Bruno / Mountview and one in Zurich. So when you're on call, Mountview has it during their day, Zurich has it during their day.
Ah.
So I get a sleep.
Have you ever had anything really bad happen while you were on call?
I mean, it's only been one on call for me, so no.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I didn't know if you'd done this before. I wonder if that would be terrible to be your first on call and all hell broke loose. You're I quit. Stress is gonna drive me insane.
Cry and go home. Yeah, I've been kind of out of it all week.
Everybody comes in on Monday morning to find you at your desk curled up in the fetal position on the floor.
There was a video at BuzzFeed that was hey, the new standing desk is the fetal position desk.
What's funny is I spent all this last week because I'm intent on buying a brand new desk in the next month. I looked at both 0G desk, which is literally laying down in a recliner, but with monitors that are angled.
Wow.
Yeah, they look insanely comfortable, but the standing desks look awesome.
I'm debating on a standing desk because I don't like sitting here right now. I'd rather be standing up.
Yeah, everybody's told me that there was I literally read probably about 30 different developer blog posts about them trying out standing desks, and all of them said that when they tried to go back to sitting, it just felt weird, like they couldn't do it.
It feels weird right now. I mean, I have a standing desk at work, so
I'm gonna try it because
this
I think
microphone-
there's a lot of studies that have like a direct correlation to how much you sit in your lifetime.
Sitting kills you.
Right.
Sitting kills you.
So I'm dying slowly, little bit by little bit, right here in front of you.
You wanna head out?
All right.
All right.
Well, guys, thank you for tuning in. Catch us whenever. We'll
Next
see you
year.
later. Bye, guys.